Hello everyone. In this video, I want to start discussing some of the themes that we see in Just Dance by Patricia McLachlan. I'm going to focus on the introduction through chapter number 5. So if you have your book with you, take it out and I'll talk about some of the scenes that we see in the book, and you can always pause and take notes. There are really 6 themes I would like to discuss, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the first 3. Number 1, family love. Number 2, friendship. And number 3, small town life. So first, let's discuss family love. There's a lot of love in Sylvie's family. It's clear that Sylvie loves her parents and her brother Nate very much. Sylvie is very concerned about her mother and her mother's happiness and whether her mother is satisfied living on the farm with her family. We also see a lot of love between Sylvie's parents and their children. Her father and her mother spend a lot of time with her. They care about her. They do their best to be a good mother and a good father. We also see love between Sylvie's parents, between her mother and her father. And the introduction tells the love story of how they met. They met in a diner in Cheyenne, and Sylvie's mother and Sylvie's father fell in love at first sight. Her father asked her mother to dance, and they danced. And there's another beautiful scene a little bit later. It's on page 32, and I'm going to open that here. And on 32, we find out that not only does Sylvie's father know about opera, but that her mother also has learned about country music. And so on page 32, her mother sings a song called I Loved You All Over the World with her husband. And then together they sang Johnny Cash, the two of them singing to each other like people falling in love in our kitchen. My mother's voice was different. It matched my father's. And they danced, just danced, like the day they met in the diner in Cheyenne. I didn't learn about crows until later. So that's just a beautiful scene about family love. Second, I want to talk about friendship. In this book, Sylvie is delighted in chapter number 2 when her teacher, Mrs. Ludoff, her 4th grade teacher, comes to visit her. And she comes with her husband, Sheriff Ludoff, and they have a plan to ask Sylvie to help her husband, actually to take over her husband's log for the newspaper. And so Sylvie is going to spend the entire summer driving around the small town with Sheriff Ludoff, and they become friends. And they discuss what she's going to call him on page 39. Actually, 38 and 39. And on 38, he tells her, you can drop the sheriff and the Ludoff. Well, what should I call you? Sheriff Ludoff shook his head. My mother called me Luddy Buddy. We laughed together. I thought for a moment. Could I call you Bud? I asked. He grinned. Yes. And the term Bud is short for buddy, and that means friends. And again, on page 48, at the end of 48, Bud says to Sylvie, I've got you. We are buds. That's short for buddies. We are buds. So we are friends. Third, I like to talk about small town life. This story takes place in a small town in the state of Wyoming. It's a very rural state. Now on page 8, we can see that Sylvie is not so sure that she wants to spend the summer on the farm. And on page 8, she turns her head to look at her brother Nate, and she asks him, "Do you ever want something exciting to do away from the farm in the summer, to see amazing things?" Nate shook his head. "I'm happy here. It's amazing here and exciting." And Sylvia's maybe not quite convinced of that yet, but in chapter 2, Mrs. Ludoff has a summer assignment for her, and Sheriff Ludoff gives her a contract, and the contract is that she's going to spend the summer going around town with the sheriff and writing about what happens in that small town for this town newspaper. And so we see some lovely stories about the people that she meets or that she observes. So on page 27, we're introduced to Elmer Bean, who has a cornfield. He has a big problem because the crows are coming and eating all of his corn, and he puts up some scarecrows. And of course, she writes about that in the newspaper. And on page 37, we find that all of the people from the town have come to the cornfield. Then in chapter 5, we're going to be introduced to Tinker. He's a man who lives by himself in the countryside, and he has a friend, a coyote named Bernie. Also on page 5, the sheriff and Sylvie come across some boys. They're making a fire. And of course, Sheriff Bud stops them, puts out the fire, and gives them a warning, and then sends them home. So we get these little stories about her life in the small town. So this is the first video that I have about the themes, and stay tuned. I'll have a second video later. I hope you're enjoying the book. Bye-bye.